Smarter than ever, Taekwondo leaps toward a new future, connecting the world through a single movement. The spirit of Korea meets the boundless energy of K-pop. No longer just a sport, Taekwondo is at the heart of K-culture, bringing Korea's spirit to the world. A beautiful culture, connecting heart to heart. We now strive to safeguard Taekwondo's community training culture as a treasured heritage for all humanity. The pride of Korea, Taekwondo.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. North Korea fired a ballistic missile off its east coast this morning, its second launch in less than a week. This comes as South Korea and the United States prepare to begin their annual joint military drills next Monday. South Korea's job market grew in July, with 108,000 jobs added from a year earlier. But youth employment remained weak, with the unemployment rate among people aged 15 to 29 seeing its biggest increase in 5.5 years. Rescue workers in Colombia are working against the clock to find survivors trapped under rubble after a 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck the western part of the country on Monday. More than 250 people are estimated to have been killed, according to local authorities, and the death toll is expected to rise. We begin today with North Korea, which launched a ballistic missile toward the East Sea this morning, making its second launch in less than a week. This comes just days before the start of joint military exercises between South Korea and the United States. Our Park Jun-an starts us off.
Just 6 days after North Korea fired a ballistic missile toward the East Sea, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff announced on Wednesday that it detected another launch at around 6 a.m. from the same coastal region of Wonsan. The Joint Chiefs of Staff announced that the missile flew over 700 kilometers. South Korean and U.S. intelligence officials are currently conducting a precise analysis to determine the projectile's exact specifications. The JCS also stated that South Korea, the United States, and Japan are closely sharing real-time information on the launch. The military immediately heightened its surveillance and preparedness for potential additional launches while maintaining a firm combined defense posture. This latest test was North Korea's 11th ballistic missile launch this year, with the timing of the launch seen as a key factor. It comes just ahead of the annual South Korea-US Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise, set to run from August 17th through 27th. The drill is intended to counter North Korea's evolving nuclear and weapons capabilities. Pyongyang has routinely denounced the joint defense drills as a rehearsal for invasion, using missile launches around the exercise as a show of force and expression of protest. Following the launch, South Korea's Office of National Security convened an emergency security meeting with relevant agencies, including the Defense Ministry and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The office said it reviewed the response and strongly condemned the consecutive launches as a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions and urged North Korea to immediately halt its provocations. Park Jun-an, Arirang News.
Over in Colombia, a massive earthquake has left more than 250 people dead, with the death toll expected to rise as rescue operations continue. Crews are digging through collapsed buildings and twisted debris, racing to find survivors in some of the country's hardest-hit communities. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Rescue crew in Western Colombia are racing to find survivors after a powerful earthquake killed more than 250 people, according to estimates from local authorities. The 7.4 magnitude quake struck early Monday and was the strongest to hit the South American country in decades. It caused widespread destruction across Colombia's coffee-growing region, damaging or flattening apartment buildings, homes, schools, and health centers. In the hardest-hit cities, volunteers and rescue teams worked through the night using cranes, excavators, and even their bare hands to search through piles of concrete and twisted steel.
What we're doing right now is removing debris so we can bring in the dog to search for any survivors. We're waiting for them to bring in the dog and for people to help us.
Families gathered near collapsed buildings waiting for any sign that missing relatives might still be alive. The United Nations Humanitarian Office says 126 deaths had been officially confirmed as of Monday night, with nearly 1,500 people injured. But local authorities on Tuesday estimated the death toll had risen to around 254 as rescue teams reached more damaged communities and communications were gradually restored. Nearly 5,000 homes have been damaged, while dozens of buildings have collapsed and hundreds of residences have been completely destroyed. Power, water, and phone services remain disrupted in several areas, while damage to healthcare facilities is further complicating rescue efforts and aid deliveries, particularly in areas near the epicenter. 이승재, Arirang News.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy warned of the threat of additional North Korean troops being deployed to support Russia for a second straight day. In a national address on Tuesday, Zelenskyy said Russian President Vladimir Putin believes he can prolong the war by mobilizing more Russian troops and bringing in additional forces from North Korea. Zelenskyy also accused Russia of using North Korean-made missiles in overnight attacks on Ukraine. Ukrainian authorities say 6 civilians were killed in the Zaporizhzhia region in strikes involving North Korean missiles. On Monday, Zelenskyy said Russia had received additional North Korean ballistic missiles and was increasing the deployment of North Korean troops, warning the developments could also pose a security risk to South Korea. South Korea's small-cap stocks are regaining investor interest as restrictions on leveraged ETFs tracking heavyweight chip makers shift money toward KOSDAQ names. For more on the domestic economy, we're joined today by Professor Shin Myung-gyu, Associate Professor of Economics at Yonsei University. Professor Shin, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
So the country's tech-heavy KOSDAQ share index has risen more than 30% from its low now. What should investors be watching out for?
I think investors should be careful not to confuse a change in money flows with a change in fundamentals. The recent restrictions on leveraged ETFs linked to Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix have reduced one of the most speculative channels into Korea's largest chip makers. Some of the short-term investment now seems to be moving toward KOSDAQ and small-cap stocks. That can certainly support prices in the short run, but it does not automatically imply that the earnings outlook for those companies has improved. The first thing investors should watch is liquidity. Smaller firms usually have lower trading volumes, so prices can move much more sharply when money enters or leaves the market. Second, they should look carefully at fundamentals such as earnings, cash flow, and debt. Small cap rallies can easily become momentum-driven, especially when investors are searching for alternatives after a major market correction. And finally, diversification matters. One positive effect of this shift could be that Korea's market becomes less concentrated in just Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix. But if investors simply move speculative leverage from large cap stocks into smaller firms, the underlying risk has not really disappeared.
Right, and tighter regulations on these single stock leveraged ETFs have coincided with the recent downturn in Korean stocks. So are we now seeing investors shift their focus toward overseas assets?
Yes, we are seeing a noticeable shift back toward overseas assets, particularly the US equities. But I would not attribute that entirely to the new ETF regulations. In July, Korean retail investors bought about $4.6 billion in the US stocks on a net basis, a sharp increase from the previous month. At the same time, we are now beginning to see money flow out of domestic equity ETFs. There are possibly two forces behind this. First, confidence in the Korean market has weakened after the recent sharp correction, particularly in Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix. Second, US markets have remained relatively resilient, especially in technology and AI-related stocks, so investors naturally see them as an alternative. The new restrictions may accelerate this trend. Some investors who still want high risk, high return exposure can simply move into US-listed leveraged ETF, including products offering 3 times leverage. So regulation may reduce leverage in the Korean market without necessarily reducing investors' overall appetite for leverage. And I think that is the kind of the important point. If investors are moving overseas for diversification, that can actually be healthy. But if they are simply replacing Korean leveraged products with even more leveraged US products, then the risk is just being relocated rather than reduced.
I see. And gold prices have been relatively low for months, but they've now hit a 2-month high as markets await U.S. inflation data this week. What's driving this, and where do you see gold prices heading from here?
I think there are 2 major forces driving gold prices right now. The first is safe haven demand. Geographical uncertainty remains very high, particularly because of the renewed tensions between the US and Iran and uncertainty surrounding the Strait of Hormuz. When investors become nervous about geographical or financial risk, gold naturally becomes more attractive as a safe asset. The second factor is US monetary policy. Gold does not pay interest, so when interest rate rises, holding gold becomes relatively less attractive. That is why this week's US inflation data will be so important. If inflation comes in stronger than expected, markets may expect the Federal Reserve to raise the rates again, which can possibly put downward pressure on gold. But softer inflation than expected will reduce that pressure and could support another move higher. So looking further ahead, I think long-term environment remains relatively supportive for gold. Geographic uncertainty is unlikely to disappear very quickly, and demand for gold as a portfolio hedge remains strong.
All right, and more broadly, the United States has stepped in to buy Japanese yen for the first time in more than a decade. This is a rare bilateral intervention in Japan's currency market. What's behind this, and what impact could this have on South Korea's currency and the global currency market?
There seem to be 2 important reasons behind this unusual intervention, as you just mentioned. First, the yen had weakened to an extreme level, creating concerns not only for Japan, but also for broader financial markets. A very weak yen increases import prices and inflation in Japan, while also encouraging large speculative positions based on the assumption that Japanese interest rate will remain low. Second, U.S. participation sends a much stronger signal than intervention by Japan alone. It tells markets that both governments are uncomfortable with excessive currency movements and are willing to act together. But intervention alone probably cannot permanently strengthen the yen. The fundamental issue is that the US-Japan interest rate gap still remains very high at 2.5 percentage points. As long as that gap remains large, there will continue to be underlying pressure on the yen. And for South Korea, I think stronger yen could actually provide some support for Korean won. The yen and the won often respond to similar regional and global forces, and an extremely weak yen can put competitive pressure on Korean exporters and also weigh on another Asian currencies. So if the intervention succeeds in stabilizing the yen, and especially if the Bank of Japan follows with a rate hike, it could reduce some of the depreciation pressure on the Korean won as well. But eventually, the won will still depend much more on Korea's own fundamentals, U.S. interest rate, and global investor sentiment.
I see. All right, Professor Shim, thank you so much for your time and insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
South Korea recorded its biggest job gain in 4 months, adding more than 100,000 jobs in July. The Ministry of Data and Statistics said this morning that the number of employed people reached 29.13 million, up 108,000 from a year earlier. This marked a second straight month of job gains after a downturn in May. However, the employment rate declined for a fourth consecutive month. Among those aged 15 to 29, the rate saw an on-year fall for the 27th straight month. The youth unemployment rate rose 1.3 percentage points to 6.8%, marking the sharpest increase in more than 5 years. And record-breaking heat this summer has hit our dinner tables, disrupting agricultural and seafood supplies. In response, the government has launched emergency measures to mitigate further damage. Our Lee Ji-yeon reports.
Unprecedented temperatures over the past few weeks have significantly increased grocery prices. This has raised alarms over heatflation, which combines the words heat and inflation to signal the impact of severe weather on food costs. Extreme heat waves are warming ocean waters and driving up the cost of seafood. According to the weekly seafood market trends for the 5th week of July, the price of wild flatfish rose about 11% compared to this time last year, while cutlass fish surged roughly 42%. Mackerel saw a staggering 47% increase. To stabilize seafood prices, the government is stepping up its response. The Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries will host a special promotion offering up to 50% discount on domestic seafood products across major supermarket chains nationwide in August.
By providing about $7 discount per person, we hope to give consumers greater savings during this period.
Beyond seafood, the extreme heat has also caused a sharp increase in price for vegetables. According to retail price data from the Korea Agro-Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation, young radish climbed about 86%, while young Napa cabbage surged nearly 87% compared to the previous month. Spinach saw more than a 108% increase. Local merchants selling agricultural products on the ground say they are feeling the impact.
Vegetable prices usually rise in the summer, but when it gets too hot, leafy greens basically just melt away.
Driven by rising agricultural prices, some consumers have turned toward traditional markets, which can be a more affordable options for shoppers. At traditional markets, consumers can save about 40% compared to average retail prices.
Traditional markets are very cheap. Also, they give you generous portions and even throw in some extra produce for free.
Although the extreme heat has settled down since the beginning of this week, summer typhoons remain a concern and climate anxiety persists among the public. To address potential supply disruptions and price volatility, the government plans to closely monitor supply and demand trends for items highly sensitive to extreme heat and heavy rain. While inflation dropped into the 2% range last month, there is still a risk that extreme weather could push up food costs even further. The government pledged to focus all efforts on stabilizing the prices of everyday products. Lee Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
K-pop powerhouse BTS is back on the road in North America, and host cities are busy rolling out red carpets to welcome the beloved artists. From ceremonial street renamings to shout-outs from governors, local enthusiasm is reaching a fever pitch. Our Ishiu reports.
After BTS kicked off the North American stretch of its tour in New York this month, cities across the region are busy rolling out red carpets to celebrate the K-pop sensation's arrival. In Canada, the Toronto City Council officially passed a motion to temporarily rename a section of a key city street, BTS Boulevard. The ceremonial name change will run from the 21st of this month through late next month, giving fans a new destination while the group is in town. And ahead of the group's stop in the U.S. state of Maryland, its governor, Wes Moore, posted a video message online on Sunday, personally calling out the names of all 7 members to welcome them to the state. Moore also encouraged BTS fans, the ARMY, to scream and engage. BTS is in the midst of a massive world tour, Arirang, named after the recent studio album, running from April 2026 through March 2027 across 34 cities. The North America tour runs through September. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, more than 2,000 people have now died of Ebola. Officials said it is the fastest spreading outbreak ever recorded. The country's Public Health Institute reported on Tuesday that the death toll had reached 2,011. It has doubled from 1,000 deaths in less than a month. An outbreak in 2018 took more than a year to reach the same number of deaths. This strain, called Bundibugyo, has no approved vaccine and no approved treatment. Late detection, conflict, and overstretched hospitals have helped it spread. The World Health Organization calls it a global health emergency. In the United States, the Washington Post reported on Monday that President Donald Trump was moved off Air Force One in a catering truck last month and switched to a different plane over an Iranian threat to kill him. Trump boarded Air Force One in front of cameras in Ankara after the NATO summit, but moments later he left it by catering truck and got on a smaller Air Force jet. Reporters and some White House staff still thought he was on board and were told to keep the window shades down. When later asked why, Trump said they were probably on a dangerous flight. Both planes landed in Britain minutes apart. The White House would not confirm the switch, saying only that many enemies have their sights on the president. In Russia, a former U.S. Marine has been released after more than 4 years in prison. President Trump said on Tuesday that Moscow had freed 32-year-old Robert Gilman for humanitarian reasons after talks with President Vladimir Putin. Gilman had been in prison since 2022. Trump said, quote, Russia asked for nobody in return and that no exchange took place. In Portugal, Cristiano Ronaldo has married his longtime partner, Georgina Rodríguez. The couple posted a photo of their rings on social media. They wed at a civil ceremony in a coastal town in western Portugal near the capital, Lisbon. The couple has been in a relationship since 2016, having met in Madrid, where Ronaldo was a player. The 41-year-old has scored nearly 1,000 goals in his career and recently played in his 6th World Cup.
The nights are finally cooling down and we can feel the change in the morning air. And along with much improved temperatures, people seem to be in better moods compared to the last couple of weeks. And since the humidity has settled down, the feels-like temperatures are pretty much similar to what the readings indicate as well. It is actually abnormal to have these pleasant conditions even before Liberation Day, but summer is not over just yet. Meanwhile, Typhoon Chanhom is moving toward the East Sea, sending strong easterly winds and moisture toward Korea. Much of the East Coast will see rain through Friday along with strong winds, so those having a summer vacation near the water need to stay alert. And this afternoon, Seoul and Gwangju will be getting up to 32 degrees Celsius. Daejeon, Daegu, Busan will be topping out at 31 degrees under sunny skies this afternoon. Inland regions will have passing showers at the end of the week, while the afternoon heat stays with us.
Now that's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
For thousands of years, one breath has endured. More than a martial art, it is the Korean way of life. Taekwondo, connecting the world. Smarter than ever, Taekwondo leaps toward a new future, connecting the world through a single movement. The spirit of Korea meets the boundless energy of K-pop. No longer just a sport, Taekwondo is at the heart of K-culture, bringing Korea's spirit to the world. A beautiful culture, connecting heart to heart. We now strive to safeguard Taekwondo's community training culture as a treasured heritage for all humanity. The pride of Korea, Taekwondo.
A country where traditional and modern cultures coexist.
Where you can explore spectacular landscapes and nature.
Savor the delights of traveling at every turn.
Where? Korea, of course.
There are some must-visit places in Korea. Ones that appear in every tour guidebook: Hangang River, Gyeongbokgung Palace from the Joseon Dynasty, and
Yes, these are essentials, but I want to go somewhere a little different. I don't have to follow the guidebook. For example, filming locations for K-pop music videos or K-dramas and movies.
traveling is all about taking it slow. A long walk at your own pace, or even zoning out somewhere quiet. Doesn't it sound relaxing?
You travel for the experience, trying something new in a foreign place, de-stressing and making lifetime memories, taking tons of pictures along the way.
70% of the Korean territory is mountainous. Naturally, hiking is a very popular pastime in Korea. Not your kind of activity? Trust me, the view will make the effort worth it. Just catch your breath by the cold stream in the valley.
Korea is surrounded by the sea on three sides. From the beach, you can enjoy a wide open view as well as various water activities. But the riverside is great too. There's plenty to see and do.
If you're in Korea, you can't miss the night view full of dazzling lights.
Yes, even the same place can have a totally different vibe at night.
Want to make unforgettable memories?
How about traveling to all corners of Korea? Join us next time to explore more about Korean culture.
held its first debate over the weekend.
The economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year.
Boosting Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of the Status UN summit.
A massive drone attack on Ukraine overnight on Monday and Tuesday.
Arirang.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Wednesday, August 12th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Today's day is Kyun.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Also, Munji's with us today.
Good morning.
Good to have you, and both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're at the middle of the work week, which means many of us are probably looking for ways to make life a little easier or get few things done faster. And as we all know, generative AI is becoming an even bigger part of our daily routines. So people are finding all sorts of ways to put AI to work, like writing emails, brainstorming ideas, planning trips, studying, or even deciding what to eat. So before we get into the bigger conversation about how AI is changing and impacting our lives, let's start with something simple. So Kyun, starting with you, when do you typically use generative AI, and what do you use it for usually?
I mostly use it for work when I need to translate English to Korean, Korean to English, and also to check for extra information on the latest news so that I can get a whole list, comprehensive research analysis with citation of sources for me to actually cross-check. So it becomes super convenient and saves me time as well. Now, outside of work, I would utilize generative AI to ask simple questions that many people in their mid-30s might actually ask commonly. So, for example, if I have to take a loan out, if I need to take a loan, by asking just one simple question, it will give me a full list of all the possible loans that I can take out with all the interest rates and
so it's actually not that simple.
Exactly, it's not that simple because I actually went to the bank last week and then it was very complicated, and I really couldn't ask the worker like all these different nitty-gritty questions because like she seemed a little stressed out. Time's running out and people are waiting behind me. I'm just like, okay, and I just had to leave like right away. And then I want to go back to my generative AI and ask all the questions that I couldn't ask. And that's where I find a lot of things really convenient with generative AI, like things that we used to actually spend time by calling in or searching up one by one. Generative AI pretty much does everything for you, and it gives you a whole simple summary of all these things in just a few seconds. So that's how I utilize generative AI in my everyday life.
I think that's like the biggest thing, because you can access so much knowledge and information in such a short amount of time. It's very helpful. So what about you, Munju?
I mean, I'm pretty much the same, just the fact that I'm not in the mid-30s right now, so I don't know if that's the same part. But, I don't know about Ki-hyun or Sujin, but I use multiple AIs to do a single work. For example, when I have to search for the news or research something, I use certain type of AI. And then when I have to create a document or a short, brief document about it, then I use the other AI to do the same thing. So that's kind of how I utilize AI. And when I write scripts, especially when I need some emotional touch, I use AI. And they're pretty good at it, actually. I drop a tear sometimes.
Oh, okay.
But they're actually pretty good at it, so if you really need it, you can just use it. But personally, I don't fully rely on AIs because, you have to always cross-check the information that they give you. So I think it is important for you to double-check everything that generative AI gives you. But I know some people use AI to simply, chat and consult their concerns, but I don't think I use as much as others do for this purpose.
I think that shows how much has evolved using AI, because now people have started to recognize which AI is good for which purpose.
Yeah, exactly. I also look for which AI should I use for this purpose, right?
Exactly.
And there are so many people talking about different AI, so I was like, I had to compare everything. But yeah, there are so many.
Right. So today we're going to explore just how far our emotional connection with AI can really go and whether AI could eventually become more than just a helpful tool in our lives. So as generative AI becomes more common, the way we use it is also changing. So AI has evolved from a productivity tool into something people also turn to for emotional support. So as generative AI becomes more common, how are people using it in different ways?
To provide an answer to your question, a survey conducted by Harvard Business Review shows how much generative AI has evolved in recent years and become closely attached to human users. So if you take a look at the screen, according to the report titled How People Use Generative AI, Therapy and Emotional Companionship became the #1 use in 2025 at 31%. Now, it accounted for just 17% of usage in 2024, but that figure almost doubled in just 1 year, making emotional support one of the biggest drivers of generative AI use. Now, what this tells us is that people are no longer just turning to AI just for information and research. They're actually increasingly turning to it for comfort, reassurance, and emotional support that humans would usually give. So we're seeing a big shift in people using AI for these kind of purposes, more emotional, personal things.
Right, I'm sure everyone listening can also relate how AI is no longer just something we turn to when we need a question answered. More and more people are turning to it when they need someone or something to listen to and sometimes to validate them. And that raises a bigger question. So if we can talk to AI, share our worries, and even find comfort in those conversations, could it be possible to consider AI an actual friend? So our panelists have their OX paddles ready, so let's find out where they stand on this. So the question is, can AI really become our friend, yes or no? So Hyun, you were saying yes?
Definitely.
Okay, so that's why.
I mean, these days people talk to AI about their personal concerns, but they also use it for much lighter everyday conversations like asking, what should I have for lunch? Now, I have options A, B, and C. Choose one for me, in this particular day. I feel like this on my emotions. So it's become very personalized, just talking about, what I should have for lunch. And in many ways, those are exactly the kind of interactions we have with friends. So I think AI is already beginning to play that role in people's lives. So I do believe it can become a genuine form of companionship in a light way, not too deep but like too personal. But I'm talking about like, hey, what should I have for lunch? Should I eat this or that? Where should I go in my free time? Things like that.
But I guess that also depends on how you define friendship.
That's right as well.
So what about you, Gwangju?
I mean, it's no for me. It's the same thing. I think you just mentioned. I think we have to think about how are you going to define a friendship. Personally, I think. Along with the emotional support, I think we should have some physical support with the friends. For example, when you go watch a movie, like myself individually, I don't go movie by myself, so I need a friend to go with. But AI can't do it, so I think, at least for me, I don't think AI could be a genuinely friend. Also, it kind of lacks emotions. AI doesn't feel emotions, just simply educated, learn to pretend as if they have emotions. So emotional connection or empathy that we share with AI isn't real for me, I think. Friends provide us with many things, and emotional support is arguably the most support that they could give us in real life. So I think in those kind of perspective, AI cannot be our true friends, at least up until now.
But we also need to consider that we grew up in the digital era, right? And we were just, even kids these days, they're born with smartphones in their hands. So they're so used to being attached to smartphones and of course AI. So if you go to subways, buses, 99% of the people are
glued to
their
phones.
There is zero human contact interaction. So people are so kind of accustomed to just being on their phones, and hence AI. So I think this is becoming more natural, what they ask AI, like all these personal things that they would actually ask people because, and we had Corona as well, and this contact, zero non-contact things as well. So all these things were kind of a build up to how people are behaving right now. So I'm actually for having AI friends. But anyway, let's move on to the next question.
All right, so on one hand, AI doesn't actually experience emotion, so the connection may seem fundamentally different from a human friendship. But on the other hand, if someone feels heard, understood, and supported through those conversations, the emotional experience can still feel very real. So maybe the question isn't whether AI can feel like a friend, but whether we need our friends to be human in the first place. So we wanted to see where our viewers stood on that question. So we asked on the Arirang News YouTube channel, can generative AI become your friend? And the results showed a clear majority. So 23% said yes, they believe AI can become a friend, while 77% said no. So while many people are comfortable using AI as a helpful assistant, most of our viewers still draw the distinction between a useful tool and a genuine friend. That said, with AI becoming more conversational and emotionally responsive, it'll be interesting to see whether those views begin to shift over time. And the idea of AI becoming a friend may not be as futuristic as it sounds. In fact, once deemed like science fiction is already becoming an actual reality. So how has AI become more than just a tool for some people, Gwangju?
Yeah, it is definitely becoming more than just a tool for everyone, I think, in real life these days. I don't know if you guys all remember, there's a film called Her, released in 2013. It's an American science fiction romantic drama film about a man who develops a romantic relationship with a personified AI with a female voice. Reflecting on that same storyline now in 2026, I kind of doubted whether it is really a science fiction. Could you really call it a science fiction? Because it has been a reality these days, right? In South Korea, reality shows exploring romance with AI have already debuted, and growing number of people are developing genuine romantic relationship with AIs. Similarly, in Japan and the United States, cases continue to emerge where individuals form deep emotional connections with AI. Chatbots even going as far as holding virtual weddings, which is very surprising. Meanwhile, in China, the government recently stepped in to regulate AI due to a surge in emotional dependency. This kind of shows how more and more people are kind of developing deeper relationship with AI, I think. And so as a result, many users experience a profound sense of loss akin to a forced breakup with a real-life partner. So this could be another problem these days, I think, yeah.
So AI can provide companionship, emotional support, even a sense of intimacy. Perhaps the idea of an AI romantic partner isn't so far-fetched after all. So we talked about friendships, but now we're moving on to whether it's possible to have a romantic relationship. And once again, our panelists will use their OX paddles. So the question is it possible for people to have a romantic relationship with AI, yes or no? So what are your answers for this?
It's a tough one, but I think it is possible, especially if the person genuinely feels that AI is fulfilling the role of a romantic partner. Now, this will obviously differ person to person, but after all, what we really look for in a partner is someone who actually gives us emotional comfort. Now, someone we can share the joys and struggles of life with. So if that someone feels that AI can actually provide that kind of emotional connection and companionship, then I think it's possible for some to see AI as a romantic partner as well.
So for you, friendship is possible and also a romantic relationship, in your opinion?
If it builds from the friendship, I think it can move on to the emotional stage.
That is true. That makes sense. So what are your thoughts on this?
I think I have to develop in the same way. If you cannot really develop a friendship with the AI, I don't think AI could really be a romantic partner. Same here. Emotional connection is the part that we have to really think about it, but also there are another part that we have to think about. Romantic relationship. There is also physical part. You really like hold hands with your partner, or like you look at their eyes and chat with them, but you cannot do this with the AI. So I'm kind of skeptical about whether you could really call it a romantic relationship if you really cannot do these kind of things. So just similarly, possessing its own independent identity rather than having their own identity for the AI is more of a passive, one-sided entity that unconditionally caters to us. And I don't think it is a really healthy relationship for receiving unlike conditional support sometimes, not every time. So I think it's kind of hard for me to think about that AI kind of being my romantic partner.
So I guess for you, it kind of goes with what you said earlier about for you, it's important for you to actually do things with your partner.
Do something with my partner, do something with my friends, but AI could only offer me, why don't you do this or that, and emotional support. But I think physical part is pretty important, at least for me, and that's why I don't think it could be a real friend or a real romantic partner.
Fair enough.
Maybe humanoids can become.
What are your thoughts on humanoids?
Right? Humanoids, yeah.
So we have two very different perspectives here. So one focuses on what the relationship provides for the person: comfort, companionship, and connection. The other focuses on what's missing from the other side: genuine emotion, free will, and also mutuality. And that's what makes this debate so complicated. Can a relationship be considered real if only one side is actually feeling it? So we wanted to hear directly from our viewers on this as well. So we ran a poll asking, can you have a romantic relationship with generative AI? And here's what the results showed. And the results were quite one-sided. So just 14% of respondents said yes, while overwhelming 86% said no. So while AI may be becoming part of our emotional lives, it seems most of our viewers still draw a clear line when it comes to romance. But as AI continues to evolve and become more human-like, you earlier mentioned humanoids, maybe it will be interesting to see whether public opinion changes in the future. And as AI becomes more deeply involved in people's emotional lives, like we talked about, it's also beginning to challenge our ideas of trust, loyalty, and relationships. So could AI relationships start causing problems in real relationships?
I think it can, because recently in Korea, an online post went viral after a woman said that her husband had been talking to generative AI.
Okay, so real life her.
Yeah, real life her, as if it were like a real romantic partner. Now, according to the post, he even had given the AI a special nickname and told it things like, you know, I like you more than my wife, and I wish I could give you a physical form so we could spend the rest of our lives together. Now, that sounds a little too extreme, but it really actually did happen. But under the current Korean law, emotional interactions with AI alone would be difficult to recognize as marital infidelity. But legal experts do say that if someone becomes too very emotionally invested in AI, that it seriously damages and breaks the marriage, that could potentially become grounds for divorce.
So it sounds like something out of a movie, but these situations are actually becoming increasingly real. If someone is emotionally investing in an AI model instead of their partner, the issue changes from the AI being real to whether the emotional connection is. And that naturally leads to another difficult question. Where do we draw a line between harmless interaction and actual emotional infidelity? So that brings us to the last and what may be the most controversial question of today's discussion. And our panelists will once again bring out their OX paddles one last time for this. So, can an AI relationship be considered cheating, yes or no? So, Kyun, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, if someone is secretly expressing love to an AI and becoming emotionally dependent on it without their partner knowing, I think it could be considered a form of emotional cheating. You know, in fact, there have recently been reports in the U.S. of more couples actually adding clauses to their prenuptial agreements that essentially say, if you cheat with a chatbot, we divorce. That suggests people are already starting to see emotional relationships with AI as a form of infidelity, even if there's no human involved.
Yeah, I feel like it would be quite upsetting if I found out my partner was telling all these stuff to this chatbot and I didn't know anything about that.
What if your partner said, you know, it's because you don't really listen to me.
No.
It's hard to have a conversation with you because you become maybe too emotional. Whereas the chatbot is very neutral, gives me the answers that I actually want to hear, and I feel comfort from that. You know, that's a different issue, right?
I mean, I feel like that's a fair comeback. I have nothing to say to that, which makes it worse. I mean,
maybe that gives the other person a reason to actually try generative AI on their own to actually express their concerns as well within the relationship. If that helps, I think we can use it as a tool. But then once you start actually building an emotional kind of attachment to something intangible you can't see, like Gwangju said, like not a physical being, then I think it gets a little too tricky and it could actually lead to divorce as well.
And because it's not like a physical form like Gwangju said, but it still doesn't feel great. It's such a weird thing. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's a very tough question. I almost got like persuaded by you, but I think still my opinion is a no. It's a really tough one. You know, putting myself or ourselves in the shoe of like as a boyfriend or girlfriend, I'd definitely be upset about it. Like, I mean, why would someone even do something like just chatting with the AI or something if you really have me, right? But here I think we have to be a little more logical. You know, first of all, we have to define to what degree or to what extreme are we going to define the cheating. I think if you really apply it to real life, if you really chat with someone like if you're a boyfriend, to other girls, if you're a girlfriend to other boys, that can't be cheating, right? You're just getting in contact with other people, right? So that part is one. And while the content of the conversation would really matter, AI is a human and lacks a physical presence again here. So for any behavior to be considered as cheating, I think a true emotional connection must precede it, which is very hard when you talk with AI, to my perspective at least. So I think considering it as a cheating is impossible, at least in this case. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. So once again, the debate comes down to what we really believe cheating is. So is it impossible if another human being is involved, or is emotional secrecy and intimacy enough regardless of who or what is on the other side of the conversation? So maybe this discussion is less about artificial intelligence and more about how we define loyalty, trust, and emotional commitment in a relationship. So we wanted to hear what our viewers thought on this as well. So we asked if your spouse has romantic conversations with AI, is it considered cheating? And the results were actually almost evenly split. 47% said yes, they would consider it cheating, while 53% said no. So whether we see AI as a tool, a companion, or something in between, it's already changing the way we interact with technology and perhaps even with each other. As AI becomes more capable of responding to our emotional needs, the challenge will be finding the right balance between embracing its benefits and avoiding unhealthy dependence. And one thing is certain, the conversation about AI and human relationships is only just beginning. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. Big thanks to Ki-hoon.
I had so much fun today.
And also Gwangju.
Thanks for having me today.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully your heart stays in the right hands, not just the right algorithm. We are News Generation.
오늘은 대한민국 임시정부를 이끌었던 김구 선생님의 백범일지를 살펴볼 거예요. 그분이 평생을 바쳐지키려 했던
한없이 가지고 싶은 것은 높은 문화의 힘입니다. 문화의 힘은 우리 자신을 행복하게 하고 나아가서 남에게 행복을 주기 때문입니다. 나는 우리나라가 세계에서 가장 아름다운 나라가 되기를 원합니다.